Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanao Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Ritam pibantau sukritasya loke guham pravishtav parame parardhe chayatapau brahmavido vadanti panchagnayah ye cha trinachiketah. There are two that drink deep of the truth in the world of work well accomplished. They are lodged in the secret plane of being, in the highest kingdom of the Most High, in their dwelling. As of light and shade the knowers of the Brahman speak of them, and those of the 5 fires, and those who have the 3 fires of Nachiketas. So there's much to look into. So what are these two who drink deep of the truth? In the world of work well accomplished, Sukritasya Loke, in the world perfectly made, the two drink of the truth. Well, how can even one drink the truth? Yeah? So, but it's interesting that rhythm, it's when we know the words, because in English truth is one word, but in Sanskrit there are 2 truths, ritam and satyam. Yes, ritam is dynamic truth and satyam is static truth, that which is, but ritam which what becomes. And this truth, because it is dynamic, can be, it's like waters, yeah, waters which are flowing waters of the truth, as it were, and they create that dynamism of becoming. So one can drink, one cannot drink satyam, yeah, but one can drink rhythm. So these two drink means what? Consume means enjoy or partake of, yeah. They partake in this delight of the dynamic truth, who are hidden in the world of the perfect made, hidden in the cave of the heart, in the higher parardha, in the higher half, in the higher hemisphere. So these two, one can keep it open. I thought always about the Jivatma and Antaratma. Jivatma is our unborn self above the head, and Antaratma is the psychic being, which is the projection of this Jivatma into the midst of our creation, but it is still not totally a part of it. It is still in that perfect world, has its own deep hiding. Guham Pravishtav, they entered into the Guha. So they are secret. They are, Guha is also the cave, that very cave of the heart, which is always mentioned. So what is interesting here, that there are 2 things mentioned in the Sanskrit text. You can see Guham Pravishtav, they entered into the secret cave, Parame Parardhe, in the supreme higher hemisphere. So how come they are in the supreme higher hemisphere and entered into the cave of the heart? Yeah? Doesn't totally work. Yeah? But For the one who knows who are these, this works perfectly. Yes? The psychic being is in the cave of the heart, and in the higher hemisphere there is Jivatma. So these two are mentioned together as if they are both in the higher hemisphere and both in the heart. And there is a reason for it also, because one is projection of the other. One pulls the other, yeah? So to say. A psychic being is nourished and supported by the transcendental self, by the self unborn. And they have connections like one has a beloved above, yes, whom one always waits for or invites or receives his support from. Once long ago, when I started my yoga, I had this experience. This is the only experience, by the way, which I had of the psychic being. So I went deep, deep, deep within, as if like beyond abyss. I came to the place where there was a huge abyss, and on the other shore I saw the flame, and that flame, it was like uh, I can't explain, but this me who was kind of doing it was very small and insignificant in comparison to that flame. Though that flame was far away and very small from my point of view, but it felt like just the opposite. Everything was included in, so everything what was happening on the surface was very small friction of some bigger happening. And then I saw that it has support from above. So it's like column of light was feeding it, or coming to it, to its call. So there were two who are one. And I think these are the two ones who are drinking of the truth. So that's why they are mentioned together, as if they are in the highest and also in the cave of the heart. But one is on the top, other is in the cave of the heart, but they are somehow one and the same, connected. And what is interesting in the second half, the Brahma Vidas, so to say, those who know Brahman, speak of them as of light and shade. Why Chaya Tapao? As if Chaya is not really a shade, it's a projection of light. So the knowers of Brahman speak of these two as the light and projection of light, which fits quite well. Yeah. And then Panchagnayah also. Panchagnayah is an interesting term. It is from Kshatriya tradition. There is Panchagni Vidya tradition, which is mentioned in Chandogya Upanishad. And this is those who believe that we have 5 fires to offer. So we begin with our life, let us say. Don't know where to begin even. Okay, like if we begin with our life, we can count 5 fires which we have to sacrifice. So we live our life, and when we finished with our work, we are sacrificed on the cremation fire, the first fire. So we give our life, so to say. Then our soul goes to the moon, and it is being sacrificed to the gods, so to say. Soul with all the experiences, they partake of them. We spoke about them and this Pitriyana. Yes, when we travel to the moon, on the moon, all the devatas who invested into our development come to receive the income or the percentage from what we earned from their investments. And so we fall back from the moon when they took everything from us. We fall back into the fire of Parjanya. Parjanya is the the fire in the space between heaven and earth. Parjanya is the rain. We become rain. Then we conceive the earth. Earth becomes the fire. Then the plants are growing, and the plants, soma of plants, is eaten by man. That's another fire, and becomes the seed, and the seed is cast into a woman, who is the fire, becomes the man, and she feeds him. So it's an Agni-Soma relation. She feeds him with Soma. Though she was fire, now she is Soma. He is fire, consuming her, growing in her. Then he is living his life, and he is again brought to the fire of cremation. So this is the cycle of Panchagni Vidya. And so this Panchagnaya is the tradition, Kshatriya tradition, who believe in this, how reincarnation is taking place within this Pitriyana. Yeah, Mother makes even comments on this. She says that soul may have this experience of falling back from heaven to earth and becoming food, becoming plants, soma, I mean the plants, and being eaten by, that was the belief, being eaten by man becomes the seed, which can be carried as, so within the soma there is the hidden capacity of embodiment of what is the seed, yeah, the salmon. It's an interesting thing. There has something in it which carries part of that food, or that soma from food, organic matter. It needs that organic matter to be a carrier of what? Of that embodiment. So there's something there that unclear connection between the soul reincarnating and the seed being cast and being received by the conception. Yeah? So there is why during the conception there is alarming light for the soul to come. Why? Yeah? There is only chemical thing, the seed went there, that's it. But there is some connection to the soul which tells the soul that there is time for embodiment. So that is not totally clear how it is happening. So Panchagni Vidya, in a way, tries in its own way to answer this question, how the soul, together with organic matter, is carried to the embodiment. This was the tradition of Kshatriyas. It was not the tradition of Brahmins. Brahmins didn't have this knowledge. It was knowledge of Raja Rishis. Yeah. So in Chandogya, this is the king who is teaching the Brahmin this knowledge. He says, they never had, now I will give you this knowledge of Pitriyana. Most probably there is some interesting kind of correlation between Devayana and Pitriyana. Devayana, the development of the soul, and most probably it belonged to the Brahmins, Brahma tradition, where Kshatriya tradition was more about the Pitris and development of these instruments of knowledge. So there is some kind of allusion about it. I'm not sure that it can be totally corresponding, but there is some intuitive correspondence between the two, because these two, Brahma and Kshatra, we read about them even here. Yasya Brahma cha Kshatram cha ubhe bhavata hodana. Yeah. So of whom Brahma and Kshatra. These Brahma and Kshatra are fundamental faculties. This is like consciousness and power. And this consciousness and power is actually everything. Yeah? Because by knowledge and power, everything is done. They are one and the same in the highest, Chittapas. Yeah? If you separate Chittapas, you will have Brahma and Kshatram. This duality of consciousness actually is projected in this duality of our being also. Yes? One is more active, psychic being is active, projection of the one who is knowing everything, of Jivatma. So the same like Brahma and Kshatram. Kshatram is the king, Kshatriyas are kings who embody the knowledge of the Brahmins. Yeah? So the knowledge of the Brahmins comes to them, and the Kshatriyas, kings, take it and make it work in the world, as power does. And also those who flame Trinachiketas. Trinachiketas is this fire which he called by his name, 3 fires of Nachiketas. Not Panchagnayah, those who believe, not Kshatriyas, but those who believe that our inner flame has 3 tongues, 3 rays, and have to be kindled in the mental, vital, and physical being, which is totally true for the psychic transformation. Psychic has to influence all 3. So much loaded in one thing. Huh?
Yeah, really. Phew.
And then it will be easier. Yaksetur ijananam aksharam brahma yat param ubhayam titirshatam param nachiketam shakemahi. May we have strength to kindle Agni Nachiketas. To kindle Agni Nachiketas is to actually kindle the psychic aspiration. And it has to be kindled. It is there, but kindling means that we have to bring it, to bridge it, to bring it forward, over that abyss to our shore, where we are with our waking state. May we have strength to kindle Agni Nachiketas, for he is the bridge of those who do sacrifice. It's exactly this bridge of those who do the sacrifice. What is sacrifice? A sacrifice that we take what is on this shore and offer it to the fire which is on the other shore. So we need the bridge. If there is no bridge, sacrifice is not taking place. So we can't reach to the fire. So we offer to some kind of other creatures. We offer to our ego, to our, I don't know what, to the fires of our vital desire or mental preference. But to offer it really, truly to the psychic is, you need a bridge. So that's why it is mentioned here, for this is the bridge of those who do the sacrifice. And he is Brahman, supreme and imperishable. And the far, yeah?
I was going to say, such a perfect depiction of the integral yoga.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Sri Aurobindo somewhere even says that he didn't bring anything new. It was there in the Upanishads. He mentions Taittiriya in that sense, 5 koshas, 5 atmans, 5 purushas. There is supramental purusha there. But also Katha. Yeah, definitely. This is the knowledge which was always there, kind of. We speak about it in different languages, yes? In different systems of knowledge. But the experientially, it is all about the same experience, of discovering in one's inner self and what it is, how it relates to our surface being. And look how interesting. This is the bridge for those who do the sacrifice, and he is Brahman, supreme and imperishable. Suddenly that transcendental self is mentioned, and the far shore of security to those who would cross this ocean. Now they speak about ocean, I spoke about the abyss, but in other places they also speak about the abyss. And Mother speaks also about the abyss. But the ocean is also a very good image. To cross the ocean is no fun. And it has depth. You can also drown into the ocean.
Waves.
And waves plus to it, even worse. Yeah. So amazing for me to see that it is not only the bridge which is bridging in and outer, but it is also the Brahman imperishable and supreme. That means that Brahman is everywhere. It is there, inside and here on the surface. And they add the far shore, not only here everything, but also the far shore, the transcendental, separate from us. On the other shore it is that which is bridged. And then Atmanam Rathinam Vidhi Shariram Ratham Eva Tu. Vidhim tu, sorry, what am I reading? Buddhim tu sarathim vidhi. Manah pragraham evacha. This is similar in the Gita. We find this similar shlokas. Know the body for a chariot, and the soul for the master of the chariot. No reason for the charioteer, and the mind for the reins only. So there are Atman. Atman is the master of chariot. Shariram, the body, is the chariot itself. Buddhi is the charioteer. And Manas is the reins which are holding the horses. And horses are here, and next are the Indriyas, the senses. Indriyani hayan ahuh. The senses they speak of as steeds of the object of sense. Vishayan steshu gocharan, and the paths in which they move are the objects of sense. Atma indriya manoyuktam bhokta ityahur manishinah. And the one who is yoked to the Atman self, to the mind, and to the senses, is the enjoyer, bhokta. That is the transcendental Purushottama, say the thinkers. So the whole kind of complexity of relations is expressed in two shlokas. In easy language, it's quite easy to understand this. But what is amazing here is that Bhokta, there is someone who is using all of them. Even self, our unborn self, is being used as the means for him to enjoy what is happening here in the world. So as Sri Krishna says in the Gita, he is Adhiyajna. He presides over the sacrifice. He is the Bhokta, the enjoyer. And he is using Atma, the self, for this purpose. Atman, his self, his being, is being created for the sake of manifestation and enjoyment of this, his own manifestation. So though we look at the self as the finest, the highest realization, it is still the means for the Lord, for the God, for the divine to manifest himself and enjoy himself in manifestation. And there's nothing much to dwell on here. Yastu avijnanavan bhavati ayuktena manasa sada tasyendriyani avashyani dushtashva vasaradheh. Now he that is without knowledge, avijnanavan, who doesn't have the discernment, with his mind ever unimplied, manasa ayuktena, which is not yoked, which is not composed, with the mind not composed or yoked to the higher self. Tasya indriyani avashyani, he has his indriyas out of control. Dushtashva ivasaradhe, as if the bad horses of the chariot here, of the driver of chariot. So yeah, as bad horses you cannot control the same senses. They run wherever they want. Anybody can hijack them and start doing something through them to you. You will be driven by them into some desire or some kind of nonsense, which is quite the case in a human life, when you are kind of possessed by some kind of desire or thought or some kind of aim which you created for yourself, but that is not your aim. It came through your senses to you as if it is your aim. Mm-hmm. By the way, the whole nature possesses us through this means, through senses coming to us. Nature in a bigger word, all the mental, vital, and physical forces may come in and demand some participation from us, and so we obey without knowing who we are. And these are the bad horses who cannot be controlled by the driver of chariot. It is of the one who has no discernment, and of the one whose mind is ayukta, not composed. That's why this kind of discernment and mental restraint are so important for yoga. Mental control, not allowing oneself to do anything and everything. It sounds very sour always for me, because I was more thinking of surrendering and being, how to say, spontaneous. I saw always that spontaneous is true and everything controlled and arranged is untrue. And even now I see it like this. But there is a big portion of truth, and one cannot manage by only spontaneous truth relation, because one doesn't have force over these mental, vital, and physical forces. We need to control them. So rejection is a part of that yoga. Aspiration has to be there. I was always for aspiration and surrender, but without rejection, it won't work. So it will work to a certain extent, but it will make your time very long, and you will be stumbling all the time. So to avoid that, we need mind, controlling mind. Discernment must be there, and controlling mind must be there. It has to become part of this aspiration. It has to support aspiration, and not to be free running with wild horses somewhere.
That's the marriage of the knowledge and will, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. To a certain extent, not totally, yes, no, not overtaking, because when mind overtakes, when manas overtakes with its rules, it becomes a religion, dogma, and then you lose the spirit. So you become dogmatic, or ritualistic. You start making ritual, reading mantras without anything, because you have to read. Mind tells you you have to go to church to put this. You go to church and you think something else. Your mind is elsewhere. You do something else, but you do this, yes, because. So this is mental control without the spirit, and it is very easy to become that.
And without the discernment as to what is, a true vibration and what is
Yes.
actually.
Yes, so you may lose discernment and become mental kind of freak, fanatic, who demands and that only his way is right. That's the manas. So there has to be this balance between vijnana, the discernment. Vijnana is a higher knowledge, that supramental knowledge, in a way, and manas. Manas is a controller. He is the reins over the senses, only the reins. It has no right to be the ruler. He is not the knowledge. He's the controller of the senses. So
At the service of the vijnana.
yes, absolutely. Vijnana is the ruler here. And then just reconfirmation of this. In the positive sense, yastu vijnanavan bhavati yuktena manasa sada tasyendriyani vashyani sadashva iva sarathe. Just the opposites. But the one who has knowledge, with his mind ever applied, or mind which is helping to control the senses. His senses are to him as noble steeds, and they obey the driver. So in that sense, we can bring the inner spirit to the surface, because there will be cooperation.
I love that, noble steeds. That's beautiful.
Right. You've been found a way. And then, yastu avijnanavan bhavati amanaskach sada ashuchich nasa tat padam apnoti samsaram chadhigachati. But he that is without knowledge, avijnanavan again, and is unmindful, amanaskach, and is ever unclean, ashuchich. So he follows whatever the senses may bring, yes, from the lower vital vibrations, because they have certain power over man, especially lower parts of his being. Nasa padam apnoti, he reaches not that goal, but wanders in cycle of phenomena. Sansaram chadhigachati, he goes to sansara, to repeat again and again until he finds his way out. Yastu vijnanavan bhavati samanaskach sada shuchich satu tat padamapnoti yasmad bhuyo najayate. So, but he that has knowledge and is mindful and pure always reaches that goal whence he is not born again. Now, when it is said not born again, I already commented on this before. Not born again means not born mechanically again, unconsciously, and compulsory. It is for him, compulsory is the opposite one. He is not born by the very mechanics of nature. So when he is born from this time on, he is born at will, at his will. He chooses when and where to be born, which is very rare. So I'm kind of adding it because that idea to not to be born again is the idea of Advaita. Yeah? So I'm kind of rephrasing it to understand what it means in terms of integral yoga. Yes, to be pure. This is interesting also. Purity. Purity is sincerity, to be sincere, to be truthful. Vijnana saradhir yastu, manach pragrahavan naraha, sodvanach paramapnoti, tad vishnov paramam padam. That man who uses the mind for reins and the knowledge for the driver, as we spoke already. Vijnana is the driver, driving the chariot, and manas is the reins, controlling the senses. He indeed, who uses this, reaches the end of this road, the highest seat of Vishnu. Tat Vishnov Paramam Padam. So one cannot reach the highest goal without mind cooperating with knowledge, controlling senses. If senses are free to run for whatever they want and bring it into our system, we will be bewildered. We will never. That's the only difficulty we have, actually. Even for those who have knowledge, they cannot control their mind easily, their senses. And all our faults are connected to this. Indriyebhyah para yarthach, arthebhyah paramah, param manach, arthebhyascha param manach, manasastu para buddhi, buddhiratma, mahan parach. Mahataf param avyaktam avyaktat purushav parach, purushanna param kimchit sa kashtha sa paragatih. Indriyebhyah para yarthach. Then the senses, the objects of sense are higher. Then the senses, the objects of sense are higher. That means that the objects of sense are higher than the senses. He just put it into a different syntax of 19th century, I guess.
The objects of sense, I don't understand.
Yes, the object of sense are higher than the senses. Yeah, from the indriyas, the objects of sense are higher. That's what text says. Yes, it's kind of bewildering.
Yeah, okay.
Should be opposite. Yeah?
Yeah, one would think. I mean, the objects of the sense are a function of the senses, right? There are no objects of sense.
If you look at how consciousness functions, with what consciousness is conscious of, let us say.
Oh, I see. Okay. If the objects of sense are manifestations of the divine, then it makes sense.
Yes, and also the being is being perceived by consciousness which is within it. Yeah, so being is always prior to the consciousness which perceives it. Can't be otherwise. Huh? If there is no being, then what consciousness is doing there then?
Right.
So in that sense, I guess they want to say, but otherwise we always think that senses are surface, and so the object of sense is something on the surface and senses are perceiving it. So we are looking from the embodied state only. So then the senses, the objects of sense are higher, and higher than the objects of sense is the mind. Here is more bewilderment comes. The manas is higher than the object of sense. It's in the embodied state, yeah? So there is some interesting kind of interconnection. I can't totally be, mind is the controller. It's a Sankhyaik vision, controller of senses. Yeah, it is that those reins which are controlling horses. But why in between there are objects of sense? This is a mystery. Why the objects of sense are not somewhere where we have to come to them with senses controlled by the mind? Yeah? Why they are put in between? There must be something here which we have to know. In the Gita, there is the same shloka, but it is said differently in the way how we would perceive. Yeah? Maybe even I will find. I think it's chapter 2 somewhere. Can't find in the book. But I will find later. These are the Gitas also. There is the whole vision of the Gita, and there I think I remember I was kind of comparing it with Katha Upanishad. They have different position. First, the object of sense, then senses, then manas, in that way. How we would perceive, how we understand it. But here they put the objects of sense higher than the senses. And you know what I think? Maybe this is the Vedic vision. It's not totally Sankhyaik yet. It's on the way to Sankhya, but it's not yet formed in Sankhyaik vision, which we are used to. So when the senses were, when Purusha was sacrificed, the universal Purusha, the senses plunged into the inconscient ocean. And from there, slowly, evolutionary, they built the bodies, came to Purusha.
Is the senses or the faculties?
Yeah, senses are faculties, absolutely. Senses, they call them senses, indriyas. Indriyas, interesting word also. They belong to Indra. Indra is the lord of the divine mind, yeah? So they are the faculties of that divine mind, or the consciousness higher than the embodied one. Yeah? And we call them indriyas, and they were always called indriyas, and we call them faculties because we want to emphasize something more than just senses, because sense doesn't really cover everything. Yeah? It says only one part of it. Well, if we deconstruct senses, we will see that it is consciousness acting through these faculties. Yeah? Because what else is there to sense? Sense what? To become aware, to perceive, yes? And so that's the action of consciousness. So if we think in those terms, then of course senses are lower, and in between there is this object of sense, which becomes the embodiment for them. So they cried to Atman when they fell into the...
Oh, I missed that. I missed that. It froze for a second. Can you just repeat what you
said? When the senses fell into the inconscient ocean and cried for the embodiment, then the the Atman brought to them first the cow, said, embody the cow. They said, it's well done, but it's not good enough for us. Then he brought them the horse. It's good, but it's not good enough for us. Then he brought them Purusha, man. And they said, oh, it is supremely well done. And he told them, enter into him, make your own living there. So to say, for the senses, for the faculties, the embodiment was the aim. And that's why they are first in that view of the sacrifice. And they were looking for the embodiment. We are still looking for the embodiment. This is the evolution of consciousness. We are still looking for the material envelope embodiment which will suit our senses or our higher consciousness. Yeah? So we are constantly evolving in the body because there is some demand for the better functioning of the body. So in that sense, it could be that artha, and artha is the object also, not only the object of sense, but object in general way, also wealth, also the meaning. If I can translate as the meaning. Yeah?
I'm not hearing this. I don't know if you can hear me, but
Oh, you are breaking.
I didn't
Okay.
hear that last part.
Okay.
They're really breaking up badly right now.
Oh, sorry. So artha has several meanings. It has the object, and in this case, object of sense. It has the aim, interesting, and the meaning. Yeah. All of them is in artha. So artha is something that these senses are aiming at. They want to build the body for the Purusha, the embodied state. And who had seen the body of the king, says Sri Aurobindo in Savitri. Nobody saw the body of the divine yet. Yeah? We are still in the process of finding that body, that embodiment. So in this sense, it could be, in the Vedic sense, that the artha, the embodiment, is higher, is something to be achieved than the senses. It's not yet achieved. But beyond there is manas, or the capacity of consciousness to concentrate consciousness on any objectives, on any object of sense, and to know it by identity. This capacity to fix consciousness is manas. So, which is most probably higher because it comes from the capacity of our will. Sri Aurobindo says, in order to know manas, or in order to know our mind, we must discover the supermind. We cannot know mind and its operations until we discover the supermind. So the mind is kind of a shadow, a projection of the supermind. That control over senses cannot come from senses itself, themselves. So it comes from some higher capacity of consciousness. Here in the lower state, control state, but still it is linked to the higher. In this sense, one can maybe interpret.
Yeah.
So I was kind of twisting everything to make it work. The mind is mind can do miracles. Yeah? That's why Sri Aurobindo said he stopped trusting the mind, because you can prove anything. Yeah, it's and manasastu para buddhi, and buddhi is higher than the mind, and buddhi is that particular faculty of vijnana in this case. Buddhi atma mahan parach, and atman, the self, is higher than buddhi. So maybe we can stop here today. What do you think?
Yes, perfect. Thank you. That was wonderful.
I'm glad we have our small company to discuss things. Nobody interferes. So lovely. Great. I will close with mantra.
Okay.
Om Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu ma kaschit dukha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Namaste.